Go ahead and open up YouTube. Oh, there we go. So now I know for sure it's connected. Okay. So we are online. All right. All right. Welcome, guys, to Lost Hombres. This is episode number 36. So we are well on our way to exploring the inner self and learning a lot about the human body and the experience, and really opening up to spirituality and talking about the divine source and really connecting on a deeper level of the being and the human and the spirit and how the mind and body work together. So we've been over a lot of different topics, and I want to continue on that path. And today I want to talk about some divine things that have happened to me over the last couple weeks, and just putting pieces together, really learning about patience, learning how to let the universe talk to me, letting little things add up, like opportunities that present themselves. I've had a really amazing weekend. God essentially just kind of planned it out for me, and I just let him take the wheel, right? I didn't want to argue and complain. There were some hiccups that happened at the beginning, but all these were necessary to have the way I was working on things, the way things had played out. It really did help me to be able to experience a lot of this wonderful, outcome from just kind of giving into source, the monad, to giving into Christ, as I like to call it, the divine, essence, and letting it guide me, right? Taking opportunities. The trip itself that I ended up going with my dad wasn't necessarily planned out like in advance. It kind of just happened. It was a domino effect. One thing led to another. Next thing you know, I'm going on a trip to go see my dad and my brother with my kids, and next thing you know, the kids can't make it because they're not feeling well, and I'm still going out there, and I still end up going out to visit my dad, my brother, and my mom coming out there. And this is the first time we've all been together, and who knows how long, actually, as an entire unit. And all these little things were playing out, and even before that, I was in this motorcycle situation where my tire was flat and I had to get it replaced and ordered, and I literally kind of picked it up the day before. I had to take off work. The bike wasn't even ready, and everything just worked out perfectly. Everything just always happened the way it needed to, And so I get to this point in my process where it's like life is working out for me. Why? Because I'm trusting the flow, right? I'm being patient. I listen to what my body tells me, and I use my mind to help that need be met, and then I follow through, which just reflects that I care and value myself, which is reinforcing my system, reinforcing my fire, reinforcing the process of me moving forward and sacrificing to gain wisdom and sacrificing to gain favor from a divine source, right? So the more I work on myself, it's like a parent, right? The more that you put your life and dedicate yourself, the more that your parents going to feel incentivized to take care of you. So you want to, do positive things, work on yourself so that the divine creator, right, can then reinforce the positive behavior that you're providing, right, that you're doing. So, put in the effort when you want to receive that blessing, right? Sacrifice that life energy if you want to get wisdom or some kind of, a payback in return, right? Put in the effort and the payback shall show up. And that's how, the divine source works with people. We learn to appreciate what we're able to do, and learn to appreciate, what we can offer to the world, and then really apply that, and then see the world pay back. So what I learned from this trip was this. Every time something would come up, I would just let it happen as it needed to, right? And what this ended up doing is it allowed me to make it to my trip. Everything worked out. Everything went according to plan. There were no major hiccups. I was able to finish the book I wanted to read. I was able to, meet somebody. We would have a good conversation with people on the airplane about, therapy and spirituality. So it was cool, getting to meet little people, here or there on my trip, and tell them about the things I'm working on. And so it was cool to meet people on the way there. And then when I got there, my dad showed up right on time. It was perfectly all aligned. We were able to go out and get together and meet up, and then were able to go out that night and go enjoy some music that my dad says he likes to enjoy. So we were able to go do that, and so we were able just to work together and meet our needs, and just again everything worked out perfectly. Then we go to this bar to listen to live music, and while we're there, I ended up seeing somebody the way I hadn't seen in almost 7, 8 years. It'd been a long time since I seen this person, and their face looked so familiar, but I didn't even know it was them. And they just happened to be in the same place at the same time and happened to show up. And as they're messaging my brother just happens to show up as well, and boom, right? He comes in and there's my brother. Like all of us, working in tangent, like everything's synchronizing and it's just working out perfectly, perfectly. Everything is aligning. Everything's perfect. Everything's just being as it needs to be. So all these divine situations are all leading up to, like all these encounters are leading up to new things, right? So then we meet them and they offer us to go to church on Sunday, and they even had offered us to go out to the coin op on the next day, which my dad had brought up as well, going to the coin op, which was interesting that he had brought this up. He'd also been talking about this bananas team from the Savannah Bananas and something about like them playing the Indiana Clowns. And we ended up going to this place to go see if they had karaoke, and while we were there, they had the bananas on. And it was just funny because it was like, as my dad's talking about, the bananas are popping up, and I also noticed that like they didn't have karaoke there, so we ended up going to another place to find it. We go there, and as we show up, my brother shows up, so he shows up right at the same time, so everything's aligning, right? Everything's working out. We get in there, the karaoke system is broken, and it ends up being like more of like a senior type of environment and very like chain smoker type of environment. So we ended up leaving that area, and so I ended up getting to ride on the back of my brother's bike, which was another cool experience. And that was like interesting, kind of being in the back of a Harley with no helmet on because you're in Oklahoma and the laws are different. So I got to do that, and then I get to this new place. And then we get there perfectly on time, and again, there's no karaoke here because they already closed down. But whatever, we're already here, right? And then we can see the situation where there's like a Mexican flag, and then there's like this buffalo that's wearing an OU kind of like design, which is funny because that represents my brother. He loves OU, but like deep down, he has like that Mexican soul. And then it was me, like the American version with the, and then underneath like there's a American flag, and then above is like the lucha libre. And that's kind of what I represent. I'm like the white guy living in Mexico. So my brother's the white dude with the Mexican like heritage, and I'm the white guy living in Mexico with the Mexican heritage. So it's kind of funny how like these things were just lining up. There was another situation where I'd seen a Yoda at my dad's house, like just stood out to me. And then as I go, there's literally a Yoda, like placard where I'm sitting at, in one of the situations I'm sitting at. I'm like, there it is, like there's this placard, and all these things just kept lining up and adding up, and all these things just kept working out in like just synchronization. One time my dad was like, the reason I hate Oklahoma is because sometimes you see these trailers and they have a pop tire, and literally as he says this, there's a flat tire, like half a tire. He's like, there's one, and then we look over and there's a car or a giant trailer with a flat tire as we're talking about it. Like he literally spoke it into existence. And this just kept happening over and over, like a divine energy just kept happening over. And this is what synchronization really comes down to. When you align with the universe, it will talk back to you. It will provide you with an ongoing stream of consciousness with you. Like when you align the subconscious and the superconscious, you become super conscious, right? Like you become one with all. And that oneness allows you to keep working through the world and keep being provided blessings. Because it's like you turned on your GPS. You turned on your location so the divine source can find your location, right? So the more that you align with that radio station, the more likely you can win tickets. Like when the call is coming, when to answer. I'm here. Give me those tickets, right? That's just kind of how the universe works. You got to take your opportunities with these tickets, and they come, and they show themselves, and they present themselves. So that's when you can follow through. But that's part of, again, what I've been learning in the last couple of weeks is how the divine source gives us programming and gives us the ability to regulate ourselves and find our inner peace, and then it just gives us all these wonderful opportunities. Even coming back, right? There was a time in the airport I was sitting next to a guy, and we had like very similar styles. He even had crosses as tattoos, and I was like, yeah, it's probably somebody I would get along with. He was playing video games on his phone, but we never talked, right? And interestingly enough, was on a flight that was connecting to Oklahoma, so we ended up going to Oklahoma together. But we had a connecting flight. That's how we met, was the connecting flight. But we never talked, right? I was like, oh, that was cool. We probably would have gotten along, but whatever. And I move on, and I'm like solving Rubik's Cube, like next to him. Like we're just not talking, but we're like in the same vicinity, right? And we both kind of have the same vibe. Long story short, I'm coming to the airport. I have a different air flight now. I'm going on American. I'm not going on Frontier anymore, so it's a whole different flight. And I show up, and this guy's at the airport at the same time. Same place. I'm like, what is going on here? And so I see another guy show up, and they're talking. So I'm like, okay, this guy. And the guy that he's talking to ends up talking to me in the line and says, oh, were you here for the tattoo convention? I was like, oh, no. So I'm like, that's what he must be here for, is for a tattoo convention. I came here to see my dad. So then the other guy steps up, and I started saying something to him like, oh yeah, I saw you at the other airport. It's kind of funny, like, welcome, like, here we are again, like divine intervention, and I see that you're a believer too. And we kind of start chatting up, and we're like, okay, it's cool, da, da, da. Like, yeah, I was here for this, and da, da, da. We just kind of chatted up, and we start walking, and he's like chatting with the other guy for a little bit, and then we just start, and I was like, well, where are you heading to? And we're like, I'm walking this way anyways, we might as well talk. So we start talking and like just talking about God and stuff, and I start giving him my like insight on like what my belief system is and how the divine system works. So we're talking and chatting it up. We're walking. Well, he ends up having to go to the number 2, and I'm going to the number 1 gate. So like we're literally like, or no, I'm thinking I'm gate 3 or something like that, or like right there. Like these gates are right next to each other, like literally the next. So like here we are. And our flights are actually leaving within half an hour of each other. So again, another divine intervention. We're both leaving like at the same time. So here we go again, right? So then we both connect on that level, and we go in and we end up working together, right? To go into like see what's going on. So we end up talking on the way there, and I start opening up his mind to things. He's like, you got some good points. Like you bringing up stuff I never thought about. And I was like, hey, what are you doing right now? Because I'm going to have to sit here anyways. Like I'm not leaving yet. He's like, well, I'm hungry. So we go sit down, and we start talking, and now we're just connecting, we're vibing. I'm telling him about my belief system, the way I see the world, and we're just clicking. And he says, like, dude, this has been a great conversation. I even gave him a little tiny little Jesus that I had, and he's like, dude, my daughter's been looking for one of these. So I was able to give him something. I was like, here's a cool little reminder. We ended up taking a picture together and having a good time, and it was just nice to be able to have this like personal experience and be able to have like a connection about God with somebody, and have like some kind of deep connection with another human being on a spiritual level, that we were able to really get down and deep on what we believe and how we can connect, and how this divine source is really the source and the willpower that brings us all together. And just again, all this awesome like conversational style skills that we were able to have. Why? Because we were able to have this moment that God brought us together, and he wanted this to happen. Again, I saw him at an earlier flight on a different day, and he happens to show up at the same exact time, go through the lines at the same time as me. We end up talking at the same time, and then he ends up having the same flight and opportunity to talk to me throughout this whole process. So again, just God, he is a divine comedian. He makes things happen on their own. Like even going to this one church, we ended up showing up to the second ceremony. So the guy that invited us, he was already there, and he ended up leaving. But because we showed up at a different time, we ended up having a different conversation with different people and having our own like experiences. And all these things just kept leading to other outcomes, right? Because we did this, it led to this. Because we did this, it led to this. And it just allowed all these moments to just work out perfectly, right? It may not have worked out the way I had planned it or thought it would work out, but in the end, it was quality. It was a great experience, and it's what it needed to be. Because this experience that I didn't initially even set up, I was just receiving and allowing to happen and taking the best out of whatever I could make out of it. And in the end, it worked out because it showed me something that I needed. It revealed things to me that were necessary. It revealed relationships. It unlocked situations. It provided these mystical opportunities that could only have happened by being open-hearted to reality, by being open-hearted to the divine, right? So another thing I've been really working on lately is talking about Gnosticism and how Gnosticism works. Because to me, the more I look into spirituality, I really align with the core Catholic belief system about mana, about energy, about magic, about incarnations, or like divinity, or like using willpower to create and manifest, and like literally like creating through the divine. Like that's how I see the universe. So original Catholicism, like Templars and Crusaders and people that were paladins, whatever you want to call them in those days, clerics, priests, all these divine types of entities and people, they were able to wield divinity in a way that they could like manifest things into reality. And that's something that I really appreciate from Catholicism, is that divinity connection and what it can really mean when you look at the original OG stuff, right? Now, I like Gnosticism too because it reveals that underlying truth underneath reality when you really lift the fabric and the veil of how the system operates on a deeper level. And I really appreciate Gnosticism because it's similar to the Matrix, revealing the hidden truth of our universe that's always been in front of us, but requires you to look deeper beyond the surface level to see the code that actually creates this system, right? And where this code can come from and how you can understand this coding a little better, right? So when I look at Gnosticism, and you can see like there's some interesting like ideology or ideas that come from Gnosticism, especially the belief system that there's like a lesser God that created Earth, and how that lesser God has created like a prison for us, and how our souls are stuck to that prison. And there's a lot of ideas that come from the Bible that Jesus is really teaching you about how to reveal hidden truths through Bible verses and under like hidden veils. And I believe that when you look at the Bible for really what it stands for, you actually can see a lot of these things being revealed to you through the way the messaging works in the book itself. So one of the ways I would suggest looking at the Bible is I like to look at it from a scientific way, in the sense of this, like, so before the earth, right, you had the heavens, right? And in Spanish, it's cielos, heaven. So you had the heavens, okay? Now, the heavens, you could say, are the stars, right? Or all the things that are like literally holding, like what holds the universe together, all these connections, these webbed out stars, right? So their magnetic and whatever you want to call it, like gravitational energy, their electromagnetic energy, which we can call gravity, right? Electromagnetic energy is holding things together. It's holding reality together. Let's call that magic. So electromagnetic energy, magic, is holding the entire essence of reality together. That's why you can call it dark energy or whatever, but it's just unseen energy, which we can call magic, what we call magnetism, because we can see magnetism exists without having to see it, but it does have a presence within energy. So we can say that the stars are holding the heavens together, right? Because they came before the earth was the heavens, okay? So stars are literally holding the order of reality, the cosmos together. The heavenly bodies, known as the cosmos, right? The heavenly body. So what does an angel look like? Well, it looks like a light source. It looks like it has, all the rings around it because it has a presence of all directions, right? It brings light and can blind you, right? It can be very hot too and purge you, right? So you can say it's a light source. Okay, so there's the light source, right? Now we can say the angels, okay, are the stars. So those are the suns, and they have the same kind of sentient direction in all forms, right? They have that same idea and they have that spin. So we're going to call those angels, okay? Now, angels come from God, right? So God created the heavens and the angels that hold the heavens together or create order within the heavens. So you could say that angels are stars, and stars hold the universe's order together as commanded by God because they come from God. They were source created into fragments, right, to create the heavens, to hold reality together. So then if we go beyond the stars, right, pre-star, we have one. Right? One thing created all stars, created all beings, all things. So we're going to call that thing source, right? That was the essence before matter even was. That is pure conscious energy, pure conscious being, pure spirit, you could call it, right? Pure energy. So this pure energy was made in the image of the creator that created it. Okay? And that creator first created the cosmos, or the space, right? Space-time, created a womb, you could call it, a cosmic womb. So the first thing that was created was a womb, okay, a space-time. Inside the womb, you put the first seed, and that first seed was made in the image of the Creator, Christ. So Christ is making his own image in this universe so that he can create the basic material necessary for all creation to be created from. All matter comes from this divine source. All creation comes from this divine Christ-like source, this Christ essence. So the entire cosmos was made in the blood of Christ. All right? Now, you have the cosmos made. Now you have all these stars made, right? We're going to call those angels. Some of these angels became so big, so prideful, that they fell upon themselves and they fell through the heavens to the bottom of in hell, right? So what is a black hole but a collapsed star that was too big for its own good and it fell upon itself, right? So this star is now fallen, okay? And that fallen star is a fallen angel. That is a demon. Demons are fallen angels. Black holes are the essence of a demon. It's demonic energy. Nothing can escape it. No light. There's an event horizon. That is like an example of when you go too far in sin, there is no going back. There are certain sins that there's no coming back from. You will fall to the below hell, right? You could say there's that purgatory, and then there's you being ripped apart for an eternity, what feels like an eternity and what feels like coldness, right? And then again, you could say that morning star, right, is the sun, because again, that is the morning star, right? So the morning star is the sun that we have. This is the demigod. This is the one that created us. So we come from a demigod, right? The demigod, this angel, created the earth, also created all the other planets as spiritual mechanisms, as energetic mechanisms to control our divine energy, right? So you have Saturn with the cube at the top, right? So you're talking about Saturn, the consumer of its children. So this demigod created us to create, right? Praise to it, to look more powerful than the divine source, right? And so what is Jesus teaching us? That the sun is actually the morning star, or another entity of like the angel, the fallen angel, because it created the earth, which has a dark side to it, right? So we have a dark side. We also have Sophia, the moon, watching over us too, right? And so then you can say that's part of the Gnosticism belief system, that there's Sophia, the moon. And again, you have all these planets that are designed to change and mess with our frequency and our energy, all being created by the source of matter, right? The matter. And so when you praise the sun, you're actually praising the morning star. And that what the idea is that Jesus came to tell us that we're not here to praise the sun, we're here to praise source, the first Christ energy that created all being. It created that star, it created Saturn, it created all things. So once you escape to remember source, then you escape the material world, right? And you go back with source, the divine source, the divine spark that you have, that it needed to create you. It needed a fragment of the divine source, which it used itself, right? Its own energy to create a little bit of that divine source and divine and material world. So it needed a place to put the divine source, and that's why it created us. But you can't take away that living source comes from the spark of existence, because that's where spirit comes from. So we still come from the same source, even though our creator was the sun, which is the lesser form of a god, right? A cosmic energy. And so you can see how all these cosmic bodies, angels and demons and these entities, can influence the human being. But if you go back to source, the inner workings of our being, we go back to the divine source, because we all come from one. And so that's the idea of like Gnosticism wrapped up in a nice little blanket, at least from my perspective, of how we can kind of see how these different entities and these different celestial beings have to do with the heavens before Earth, right? So these heavenly bodies have existed, and we're just kind of telling the story from what we can see from the cosmic realm, right? The heavenly realm is telling us a story of creation before our existence, and that's the heavenly bodies. Because really a black hole will rip apart a star, but a star can also rip apart a black hole. So you can kind of see angels and demons working from a heavenly point, but they can still influence us with their essence, because their essence is still technically living, because it's still burning. So they're living in the fifth they're living in the fourth degree, right? The fourth spatial degree, which is motion, right? So as long as something's in motion, it still exists. Black holes are technically still in motion, but they need really low vibration, right? And then suns are still in motion, but they need higher vibration, right? So you have to look at these things from that perspective of like, what are we dealing with here, right? Are we dealing with high vibrational entities or low vibrational entities? And what is influencing our reality, right? Again, you might have had an angel create something that in reality, because they're still demons, no matter, even if an angel created a paradise, because demons still exist, there's still going to be that fluctuation of energy. And the only thing that can save us from ourselves is the divine spark. Because at the end of the day, that's the true creator. And if we can appreciate the way he created the whole universe, then we can appreciate the way that this creation is made for us to exist within. Even though we're living in a simulation, we can live at the highest capacity of this simulation, right? Again, even a programmer has to work within the coding of whatever the original creator made, right? So they're all, going to have to work within the coding system that they were allowed to work within. So even if there is a programmer out there like the sun, he still can only program within the way the creator created the operating system to program in. So even if you can be the greatest programmer, you're still not, source, the whole system that allows this frequency to operate within, right? And so this is how we can look at Gnosticism, right? Is that, again, it's explaining things in a way where it's revealing the veil of what can spirituality be, right? What is energy? What is stories? Like, how do these heavenly bodies work? And because they're outside of our existence, because their time zone is different from ours, right? Heavenly bodies work within the heavenly realms, right? So even if they're having battles, Titans are having battles, giant, heavenly bodies are having battles, we are not part of those battles. Why? Because we are living within our time range, right? Just as much as your cells inside your body are living in their own time zone, right? How many blood cells die while you are alive, right? A lot of blood cells like go through their cycle, right? How many things have you outlived that were part of your system, right? You have dead cells that are inside of you right now. You have dead things floating around that need to be rebuilt into something else. Well, what's the difference between that lifespan of a cell and the lifespan of us versus a cosmic entity or a heavenly body, right? So those heavenly bodies have been there since the dawn of time because they've been doing their work and deed and battles for years. So these things that are fighting each other, you could say, are going to take, millions of years to fight, millions of years to move around because they're heavenly bodies. So even if they're going to fight, it's going to take them their time to fight each other. Same thing as like if you ever watch Lord of the Rings, there's like the trees. And the trees, the way they communicate is like really slow. It takes them a while because the way their rooting system works, like they're on a different time scale. So it's the same thing for us, right? We're in relation to our existence. Trees have outlived us a long time. So their sense of communications on a whole different scale. Why? Because of the way their scale operates for their own reality, right? And so our reality is in association to what we're meant to handle and what we're meant to be through. And that's what programming looks like. There's only certain things you can, again, program within the realm of whatever you're given. So this reality can only be created and programmed in so many different ways, right? So yeah, that's heaven and earth from a Gnostic kind of perspective of reality is right there in front of you, but unless you understand what you're looking at, it's hard to break it down into something that can be tangible and meaningful. And so those are kind of things that I've been going through in the last couple weeks when it comes to like understanding reality and what it can mean and like just breaking things down. Another thing that was revealed to me recently was something that has to do with Jesus and washing feet. And what's interesting is that if you look at the way feet are labeled, right, you'll notice that the bottom of the foot is called the sole, like my soul, right, the sole of my foot, right. And you can also say that the bottom of your foot is called the heel, the hell, right. Hell is another word for heel, right. That's where it comes from, right, the hell. So that's the most bottom, painful, like the part that tortures you the most. Like that's the part of you that will always have to sustain your weight, right? So you can say that Jesus, when he washes your feet, he's washing the hell out of your soul, right? Because if he's washing your feet, he's washing your soul, he's washing hell, he's washing it from your feet, right? So he's cleansing the hell out of your soul through washing your feet, which is something to kind of take into consideration when you think about why that feet is more significant than what we think, right? Because even the way we label it actually has to do with this process, right? Of what it means to wash your heel, what it means to wash your foot, your soul, your being. And this principle also applies to the way you live your life. When you wear shoes that are not appropriately sized for you, you start to live in a dilemma where your foot will start to hurt because of the lack of appropriate fitting size, right? So if your foot is too big, you'll get blisters, right? You'll move around, you'll shift. I like to say you'll also look like a clown because you're wearing shoes that are way too big for you. You don't look right in this setting. If you wear shoes that are too small, you'll always feel like you're cramped, like you're never able to fully be yourself. So you always feel limited in yourself. And then you're going to continue to be treated limitedly because you've accepted this smaller version of what you know you're capable of being, right? So I tell people you need to find the shoe size that fits you perfectly, or at least to the best that you can, right? So be authentic to yourself, because you're going to be able to walk a lot further in shoes that fit you properly than shoes that don't. And you're going to see a lot more from life the further that you can walk in your life, the further you can get, than the more limited that you are. When you limit yourself, then you can't access your true potential. You can't reach your highest, whatever you want to call it, a level of enlightenment, or you can't reach your self-actualization, your higher self, when you limit your growth potential. Because again, growth is your roots, right? You got to get those roots going so that you can grow in perspective. But if you're not willing to dig deep, allow yourself to be uncomfortable and get through the pain of the dirt, then you can't gain the perspective of reaching higher to something, a higher potential. So again, we got to work with ourselves to find our ability to work forward, find our peace, find our truth, and, just live to our highest capacity through self-respect and discipline and sacrifice. So another thing I've been learning recently is what sacrifice means too. So that's something else that I find significant. I talk about Odin being this type of character who represents what sacrifice can look like when you dedicate flesh for knowledge, or like spiritual knowledge too. So in the story of Odin, he sacrifices one eye, and then he only has one eye, but this is the one all-seeing eye, right? So he sees spiritual side of things, and he also sees the physical side. So he can delve into both sides. But in order to get a spiritual sensation, you have to sacrifice life and essence to gain that reality, right? So you have to make a sacrificial, essence, energy exchange or whatever to gain wisdom. Like an example of this would be if you sit in a classroom for so many hours, you're giving your life source to this classroom, and that exchange of energy is then producing a sense of wisdom. So all wisdom is gained through sacrifice of the self being your life energy that only you can reproduce, right? So you have to sacrifice yourself to gain wisdom. Another, even thinking about how we fight cancer, right? So when you are taking chemo, the chemo is killing you. It's killing you and it's killing the cancer. And so you're trying to outlive the cancer through your willpower. You have more will to live than the cancer. And so pure willpower is what's helping you overcome the chemo so that you can outlive the cancer and keep moving forward and then recover from the chemo. But what are you really doing is you're truly regenerating your own life essence, your own life source, right? Through sheer want to keep going forward, right? So your willpower is strong enough to heal itself so that you can fight something like cancer even though you feel like dying, right? Or you're feeling death. You're literally dancing with death to outlive this virus or the growth thing, that's this thing that's feeding off your life energy, right? And that's, again, sacrifice. So if you go into a mechanic shop and you see a young guy, and he's really strong, he's healthy, he just looks really good, right? Awesome, right? But then what happens when you ask him, how do you do this job? And then he's like, let me go ask my boss. And so then you're like, what the heck? So now he has to go ask the guy, his back's broken, his leg hurts, he doesn't do... But he knows exactly what he's doing. Why? Because he's put in the sacrifice necessary to gain the wisdom that he needed to be able to do the job that he needs to do, right? So as much as he's sacrificed his body, what he's gaining wisdom. And so everything that we do to gain wisdom in this world is going to require some sense of sacrifice. And people that are not willing to sacrifice their life energy are not willing to do what the work is necessary to gain what? That wisdom that you're going to etch into your soul. That's why people that use things like AI or things and they don't actually dedicate themselves to studying and writing things down and doing things are not etching it into their soul, right? So this lack of discomfort that they're experiencing because they want to just find a system to do it easier, that lack of desire to change is not going to sustain yourself. So one of the reasons why ancient cultures actually were smarter in putting things in rock is because the rock would last longer. So, but it's going to take a lot more energy to carve it into a rock. But again, if it's worth carving it into a rock, then it preserves the message a lot longer than if you write it on paper, right? Or even if you write it in a digital way, right? So when we write things like emails and stuff, as much as it's helpful, like you can lose access to that too, right? Like etching in stone is the only way to really sustain long-term like messaging. And that's why we still have pyramids of today. And any paper we have to conserve it, save it, put it away, keep anything from it. And things that are made out of, rock have been able to stand the test of time even today, out there in the world, like still taking on weather and still like handling, all the different challenges that the natural environment brings, right? So when you etch it into your soul, that is because you can access it and then it comes out of you like an energy. And that's your ability to produce your craft, right? That's like spell crafting, is spiritual crafting, using your life source to produce only what you can produce, only what your life energy has access to, which is your soul, right? So think of your soul as a type of a pen or something like that, and then the ink comes out, right? And so whatever, only you can produce that ink or that style or whatever it is, only you have the capability of writing whatever it is you're doing, creating whatever it is you're creating, because you've obtained the type of insight, the type of regulation necessary to be able to focus enough to produce this thing. But only your life energy can do that. And so that's what makes us special as human beings, is that the things that we learn inside of our vault can only be accessed by our essence, right? Only if you log into your character on Minecraft can you access your inventory, can you access the things that you can create, can you access your recipes, because that's your character's bound, insight. And this same insight also applies to this world. So all your secrets, all your information, all your databases can only be accessed by your DNA. Only you have access to this material. Even if I connected your brain to something, I couldn't understand the way you wrote things in your brain. Because only you, the being, can understand the way you operate on your mind. Even if I tried to read the data coming out of your brain, I wouldn't understand it because it's been tailored to your style of existence. It's like the way you would explain something has to come from your being, has to come from everything you've been, everything you are, your whole DNA, everything that you have been created to be has to be involved in the process of truly being oneself. And that's how we operate in this world again, right? Is being the pure essence of ourselves, right? Pure energy of self. So another thing that I want to talk about today is I want to talk a little bit about the material that I kind of work on and kind of give you guys some background on how I come up with my information. I'm going to do my best to not cut off the feed, so I'm going to have to kind of look at my my feed as I transition just to make sure that it doesn't fall off, right? So give me a second. I'm going to turn this down. I'm going to check my live feed, and then we're going to transition. So here we go. Let's hope this transition works out. So I'm going to have